Hi everyone, Sandra Duran Wilson here, and welcome to this week's Mixed Media Soul Sparks, where every week I bring you some new ideas, inspirational tips, new products, new ways of looking at things, and whatever else that I might come up with. This week we're going to have a lot of fun torching things, so I got to be careful. But it's more than that. I want to talk about lost and found edges. And last week I talked about ideas of scale, of why you might break something apart, change it. Because every time you look at something, your mind wants to automatically say, oh, I identify that and move on. But if you have something a little different and the mind takes a while to look at it to figure out what it is, then you're going to have your viewer staying with your art longer, and that can tell a better story. So really, it's all about telling stories, and edges tell a story. You know, we have to have boundaries to know where the beginning, the middle, and the end of the story is. So it's kind of a far reach, but edges in art are important. And this week I want to look at what I'm tearing down edges. I'm going to look at burning edges, painting edges, and hard edges, soft edges, using both ripped paper and paint. But the first thing I did is I just took some mixed media paper, and this is just going to become like not so much a book as it is going to be an installation of these layers. And I've made these pages. As you can see here, I have torn them already, but I can just show you that there are many different ways. If you tear your paper, pulling it toward you, you're going to have the edge. Oops, I'm tearing two of them. That's another way to do it, I guess. So now I have this piece. I can use this edge for something else, but I have this piece in my book, and this piece is going to be torn like that. So however you want to work it, you can tear your pages. I'm thinking of a landscape. So first I'm going to show you burning some edges, and then I'm going to show you painting. So let me get this out of the way. I'll go back to this one. I do have a little heat tool here. This is one I bought at the craft store, and it's got a lot of different tips to it, but you don't need to use it. I mean, you could do this with other tools, but I find it handy to have, and I'm going to show you how to make these holes. So I've taken just a piece of wood and I've covered it with parchment paper. And I just take my little wood burning tool, I've had it turned on for a while, and I can make small holes or big holes. And when I want to make a big hole, I hold it up so it can go all the way through. And I can even use this to burn the edge. You have more control using a tool like this. You know, you can even shape the edge. Don't do this underneath your smoke alarm. So I gotta be careful it doesn't set it off. Always keep some water handy. Don't leave your tools unattended. You know, all that sane stuff. Keep yourself safe. I want to show you a faster way. This one has a little cord on it. I can turn this off. So here's the faster pyro way to do it. Let me just take this piece out. So I'm going to take my little torch here, and I have a towel that is wet, I'm just going to start this on fire. And then I just put it out. It's best to do a little at a time. So that's a lot faster working with that edge. And as I build these up, I can even rearrange these pages. So if I have it this way, I can come back in and kind of torch this one. And you get this very interesting edge. Now obviously this is very fragile and it's going to break apart, but this is work on paper, so it's kind of meant to be. I just had a new idea. It's like, I love how these edges are, and I could take this and just collage it in rather than keeping it as a layer like this. But let me just show you what would be the next step you might want to do with these. It's like painting these edges. So in a way, they're kind of lost now. I've burned them off. I'll get my gloves on. And I'm going to paint these papers with a very diluted high flow acrylic. Now you can use any acrylic you want, just really dilute it with a lot of water. I put out an assortment of kind of a transparent red iron oxide, a sepia, and a green. And here's some you can see I already did. So I'm going to take this one with a little bit of the green. Because the paper is so absorbent, you really want to water it down so that you don't get a lot of color in it. And I just want to wipe this off some. Just using that other piece of paper. I want it really, really pale. I could even come back in with a layer of some of the brown on top, maybe even coming down from that edge. See how it starts to integrate that? It's kind of a real burned edge and a faux burned edge. Just let it kind of run. Here's some alcohol. So you can see how these edges can begin to get layered to make a very interesting composition. I would layer these in as collage, or if I wanted to keep the piece together as a book, when this dries, I could come back in and then burn the holes in like I did here. Or I could even keep, these pieces together as a book. So working with your edges, burnt edges, torn edges. One other thing I want to share with you. These edges can be used, let's get this piece over here. And I've got some masking tape on here, and I've torn the edge of the tape, so it's kind of a decal looking edge. And this is painter's tape. But here's another idea. I can just use this piece of paper that I've torn out as an edge. Now when I'm working with an edge like this, I'm going to need thicker paint. I don't necessarily want it so diluted like we just did on the paper. I'm just going to use the paint I put out, but I can also add some white paint. And I'm going to work with a sponge. So I got my sponge a little damp because otherwise it'll absorb all of the paint. So here I'm going to come along here and just You see how it already absorbed all that paint. So I'll come in with the brown on this side. Starting to blend these two. And let's do the green and the brown in here. There's some texture in here, that's what you're seeing here. And now I'm going to pick up the white and kind of come along here. It's thicker, so it's going to be more opaque. But that edge, I can get an interesting edge just by using the paper, the torn paper, rather than the tape. It's not so obvious. Let me put some brown there. We'll see it then. There we go. And even layering that, I've got a little bit of that white underneath and then the brown on top. So let me pull this tape off. And I can let this dry and come back in and do some more edges or even use my torn paper edges. One other way you can use edges is, let's just use the hard edge of this paper. And I'm going to hold it right here and come back in with the white paint. And when you have a hard edge like that, you get a whole different push-pull thing than when you have a soft edge. And you can even work with a hard edge to create some gradation, which I think we covered that in another one of the lessons. But there's soft edges, there's hard edges, there's burnt edges, torn edges, and every time you have an edge in your work, it's going to give it some depth. If you wanted to create even a bit of a feeling of, let's see if I can do this over here. Whenever you bring a darker color next to a lighter color, now I've got that white edge up there, and I'm just going to come back in with the dark. And if I wanted to keep the paper there, just to keep that edge, it's working the edges back and forth. And higher contrast is going to give more depth. So if I wanted to come back in with the white paint, I'll flip this around. I can work up gradations. So the thing about working with the edges is sometimes you have to let one layer dry before you come in and put your paper over that wet area, come back and forth. But I like the way edges can bring a whole different feeling. Like, let's say if I even collage these pieces in, you know, that's going to give a lot more depth to this piece. So this is just one of my scrap pieces of paper I keep cleaning things off on. And again, I'm going to start adding these edges and pieces, and I'll finish this piece and I'll put it in the notes or at the end of the video so you can have a look at where these crazy ideas ended up. So torches, wood burning tools, paper, make sure you have some water around and something to put out your flames if it gets out of hand. And thanks for joining me this week. Check out the website for all the available self-paced classes, all the mixed media soul sparks that you can get by the month, and if you missed any, and join me for a workshop. So until next week, have fun creating. Join the Creative Awakening Community on Facebook, where you'll be able to post your art, connect with other creatives around the world, and ask questions. Use the hashtag #MixedMediaSoulSparks when posting your work on social media. Thanks for joining me, and I'll see you next week.